Okay, so I based on a couple comments. Y'all want to see more information about what I do outside of garden tractors. So here's this bee. I have never owned a bee before. If you want to go back and look at the video where I bought a D, a B, and a 70 diesel, those are three models I have never owned. With this one, I paid $600 for it. So what I know about it, that tire right there and that rim is toast. This one holds air. The tire's in rough shape. The rim seems to be a good shape. Both front tires are toast. This one right here holds water. It holds air. They are F&H front wheels, and then these are 40. Let me look. I can't remember the size. Anyway, these are like vegetable wheels or something. I don't know anything about bees, so I'm learning. I figured the first thing I would do is get in here because I have seen so many posts on forums and Facebook and everything about trying to get wheels off. I figured the first thing I would do is go ahead and get everything at least soaked down with some type of penetrating oil. I went ahead and did this side. This side was not that hard, famous last words, because I'm sure when I get to the other side, it's going to be a royal pain. So what we've got, and some of y'all may like this, may not. So we have this hub right here. I don't know, clamp, I guess you'd call it. This clamp applies pressure to this wedge. What you have to do is loosen up these three bolts right here, and then use two of them to push in and jack this clamp off this wedge. So that's what I did over here. And it worked pretty good. Like I said, I've never done this before, but I've seen so many posts of guys with jacks and chains and everything with these things trying to get them off. So maybe I won't need to do that. Now, comparatively, just so I kind of show you what I'm working with here, on this 4020 I've been tearing apart. So these have just two wedges, and you can see them from the back right here. This wedge and this wedge. Very similar mechanism. So these are cap bolts right here. They pull the wedges into the wheel, and these are jack bolts, and they push the wedge away from the wheel. So right now, I have loosened all of these cap screws, and I have used the jack bolts to push the wedge out, which when you look at them, you can see the difference in space there, or height, I guess you want to call it. Then you have this jacking bolt right here. That's what you use. The wheel, the axle has little marks in it. You're supposed to do this with this up. In the case of this, I'm trying to get the differential out, so I've kind of got a couple different things going on there. But that is how you do the newer style. But what we're going to do is we're going to see if I can't go through and get these bolts off. So let me set up the camera or my phone, and we'll see how much struggle I have. All right, let's see what kind of struggle I can get into. So got my breaker bar here. Oh, hey, the first one was loose. I didn't even have to struggle with it. Okay, what about the next one? Okay, so the next one's okay. And what about the last one? Oh, it's already moving. Oh, fantastic. Okay, so now they're broke loose with the breaker bar. I'll get my ratchet out and make sure that you can see what I'm doing here. Yep. I probably should have done this one first because the light over here is worse than the light over on the other side. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do, now that I got the cap screws out, here are the two jacking holes right there. I'm just going to go ahead and spray those out pretty good. I got my And I'm also going to clean off the bolts, just to get rid of any dirt and debris that's on them. And then what I did on the other one is I just took some penetrating oil and then took and dropped them in. Let's see how they, I had to do this a couple times on the other side. Let's see how they go in. Oh yeah. Gotta get close. There we go. Okay. So they're both up against the, oh no, we've got a little bit more to go. There we go. Okay, so they're both up against the wheel. So now I'm going to get my 36-inch 3/4 breaker bar. See if we can't break them loose. There we go. I think that got it moving. Oh yeah, it's moving. Yep, okay. Now I can go back to my ratchet and take it the rest of the way off. Basically, we're jacking this part right here off that wedge. And eventually, if it's like the other side, it just started spinning. Which I think we're pretty close to that now. There we go. Perfect. Awesome. Well, now what I'll do is I'll get everything soaked down with penetrating oil, and we'll work on to another part of the tractor. All right, so now this is strictly coming from parts. All right, so my objective here is to make my $600 back plus some. So a lot of that is being able to figure out what parts are worth the most. So those are the most reasonable parts to pull off first. Now in this case, these F&H wheels, evidently they are worth a little bit of money. I found a set online. They went like $1,200 for them. They've been online for what I can figure out is a long time. That set right there is not worth $1,200. So probably the best thing for me to do is to like set it up as an auction or something on eBay. That'll come later because right now we need to leave the tractor with the wheels on. The only reason I tackled the wedges is because I wanted to go ahead and get some penetrating oil in there. That way, when I'm ready to, I can pull those wheels off and we're done with it. So now I think the next thing we need to do, the carburetor, the magneto, or I guess the magneto, I'm not sure what you call it. But basically the carb, the magneto, are probably worth the next two most valuable pieces. So the problem with the carb, and I'm not going to fire it up anymore, and I did not get this on video because it was dark when a lot of times I work on this stuff outside after dark, and it's not lending itself to being videoed. What I have a feeling of is this carb, while it does work, it floods the engine. Basically, I think the float is stuck in the open position. That's not necessarily something. I mean, the carb is worth something in parts. Everything is free. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull the carb off, And that way we can start getting everything else. But to pull the carb off, rather than try to fight everything, it eventually needs to get done. I need to figure out how to get this hood off. The other day, I figured out how to get the grill and the hood nose cone and everything off. That was okay. That was not that hard. Basically, there were 3 bolts up front, and then 6 bolts total on each side to get the hood pieces off. But I've got to figure out how to get the hood off, and to do that, I need to figure out how to release the steering wheel. Like I've said before, I have never worked with a B, evidently. So on the numbered series, so on like a 720 or even that 70, if you want to take the hood off, what you have to do is you've got to drive a roll pin out. Well, I don't see any really accessible roll pin in here, up underneath there. At least I'm not seeing one with the camera. So that tells me that the steering shaft needs to be released in here somehow, either through this plate, which I'm guessing there is a bearing right here that would either need to come out, or it can be released with this plate right here. I think what we're going to do is we're going to start right here. Now, on the lettered series tractors, they have these really funky screws on them. I don't have that size screwdriver, so I just got to do with a vice grip. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take that off, and we're going to see what's under there. Okay, so opened this lid right here. It is a worm gear. So what I did is I figured, okay, well, it's not going to go out that way, but it needs to come this way. So if it's a worm gear and you can't get in there to take the worm gear off, most likely the entire shaft has to come this way. Pulled this plate off right here, and you see there's a bearing. And so what I did, which I was really expecting it to fight me, I undid this nut right here and pulled the steering wheel off just with a couple taps of a hammer. And now, if everything works right, yeah, we're just gonna spin the steering shaft out the end, right? Yeah, there we go. So now I think what I need to do is I didn't think I was going to have to take this key out. But I think I got to take that key out. So let me work on that. I'll get the shaft out and we'll get the hood off and we'll see what's under there. So there's how that is put on there. I'm not going to clean that up right now because I still need to be able to steer it. So I've got to reassemble it once I get the hood off. But I'm pretty sure I can just take the hood off and then put the shaft back in. All right, so got the steering shaft out and everything, but I cannot get this hood off. I am not really sure what all's going on. So there's this guard right here that there were 4 bolts right here, and then same on the other side, right there. So that guard is what holds the fuel tank in. And so I thought I could just take off the fuel tank by undoing these bolts right here. Well, this is really falling down now. But the problem is you have the shutter mechanism right here that is actually physically attached to the hood right here. And the rod actually runs the whole length and then is trapped by the dash panel here. So I'm not really sure. So we're going to call an audible, and we're actually going to go and rip the carburetor off. You can see how much dirt and everything is underneath the hood. That all is from this tractor, me shaking it and everything. So what we're going to do is we're going to call an audible, and we're going to get rid of everything that we can under the hood before we take the hood off. That way I can get in there and really look around and see what problem might be. Because in order for me to get I think if I can get the air cleaner off of here and everything, we might be a little bit better. So I'm going to start working on taking the carburetor off. So I'm going to retool, and we're going to approach this from a little bit different angle. All right. So now I've already disconnected the throttle, which that line's not even here anymore, because that was kind of in my way for getting some of the bolts out of the hood. So the next thing I need to do is I need to disconnect the choke lever here. Typically these are pretty easy, unless of course, you know, unless of course you got the choke lever trapped by trying to do all that. So there's that. Put that pin back in there, that key, whatever you're gonna call it. We'll just let that one just move back. Like that. Okay. So now to get this carburetor off, I think all I've got to do is take off the 4 bolts, which typically they're a little bit more of a pain than your average garden variety bolts because they're trapped. But I think this should be pretty doable. Oops. Make sure. Sorry, hitting the. There you go. All right, we got the carb off. And what I've done, I'm just going to kind of look over it here. I've already loosened the bottom nut so we can actually see what's going on. But we'll loosen that up. Oh, nice. Nice and grungy. So, see if we can't get the bowl off of here. I think I'm going to need some additional persuasion. So, we'll set you up there. Oops, sorry. All right, let's see what we got. Oh, nice and grungy. Nice stiff float. That was, sounds like our float is bad. You can hear that. Definitely sounds like we need a new float. What I'm going to do, because I don't have a new float or anything, I'm just going to get this cleaned up and get pictures of it and get it listed, because we don't need it, so it can go down the road. But it does need to be cleaned up. I'll get pictures of the interior and everything, and we can go from there. All right, so where'd we get to in the? I'll just end this video here. But where'd we get? We got the carburetor off. We got the air cleaner off. Did not get the hood off, even though I wanted to get the hood off. We got the clamps off the wheels. And so I think the next step is we're going to see if we can't get that oil bath air cleaner out of there. Because I think then once I've got that out of there, I've got a little bit more room to look under there and see what's going on. At the same time, we'll go ahead and get the generator out of there. Might test the generator. I'm not really sure. Something I removed off camera was the exhaust. That's just a couple bolts, not really all that hard. But you can kind of look up under here and see we've got bolts, and I just cannot figure out how to get them out. We're going to keep plugging away at it and see how it goes. But that's where we're at on this bee project. If you want to see more, let me know, and I'll keep making videos like this as I tear it down over the next month or so. So thanks for watching.